Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here for lowpost.com, and I'm back again with the next lesson in our Scratch Essentials tutorial series. And today I want to go back and talk a little bit about something that we touched briefly on in a previous lesson in this course, and I'm talking about LUTs. LUTs are something that's important to understand. It's important to understand technical LUTs versus creative LUTs, but more importantly, inside of Scratch, it's important to understand where you're going to apply them, whether you're going to apply them in the media browser or whether you're actually going to apply them in the color effects module. In this lesson, I'm going to show you what you need to know to apply them inside the color effects module, and then I want to expand a little bit on what we talked about in our last lesson, where we talked about applying grades to versions inside of the color effects module, and I want to show you how you can get in and compare grades by using either a split screen method or a side-by-side method, so you'll always know where your shot came from or is as far as how it looks and where it's going next. Alright, so let's Command or Alt and Tab into Assimilate Scratch, and we are in the Construct module. And before we get rolling talking about LUTs, what we need to sit down and decide is, how are we working? Are we working as a conform artist or are we working as a colorist? The reason I say this is that when colorists work, in most cases they're not actually applying LUTs to shots. That's what the colorist is doing. However, if you are the conform artist, there's many times where you're going to need to get in and just verify that the correct LUT is being used across the entire timeline, so that you can make notes, send an email to the colorist saying, by the way, I don't think this shot is, using the right LUT, etc., etc. So what we have the ability to do inside of Scratch is to put a LUT over top of all of our footage, but not actually apply it to it. We can change the display LUT. Now let's talk about that first and how we're going to go about doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head to the Edit module, and I'm going to head over here to our settings. Now in most cases you'll be on the general settings, so you're just going to want to switch over to your monitor settings. Now I am on the second shot in here. It's actually the third shot. I'm just going to park it on shot number 1. And what we'd like to do is get in and to change the working view of this shot. Now, right now, because I was prepping for this lesson, I do have the correct LUT applied. What I'm going to do is hit load. I'm going to come to the bookmarks to the desktop. I'm going to come into my LUTs, and you'll see that I have 2 LUTs in this folder. One is my cool LUT.cube, and the other one is my log C to rec709.cube LUT. Now the difference between these 2 LUTs is one is a technical LUT, one is a creative LUT. What is the difference? A technical LUT is something that you're going to use to do what we're going to do now, which is to change color space. We're going to switch from a log color space to a Rec 709 color space. My cool LUT is a creative LUT that's going to give our footage the look of, Saving Private Ryan or Schindler's List or, The Walking Dead. So for the purposes of what we're doing now, because we're viewing our footage in log color space and I want to change it to Rec 709, we're going to choose this LUT right here. I'm going to say open. You'll notice that nothing has happened. Now before I actually go about doing this, what I want to do is call up our scopes. I'm going to leave them up there in the upper left hand corner, because once we apply a LUT to our footage, we should notice an immediate change in the waveform and the vector scope. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to apply the LUT to our footage. Well, our footage looks correct now, but you'll notice that the waveform and vector scope have not changed at all. Because remember, we haven't actually changed the color space of the clips that we're working with or applied the LUT to the clips that we're working with. We've only applied it to the working view, which is perfect for me now to get in and to be able to come through and verify that all of these shots are actually in log and need to have that log to Rec 709 color space LUT added to them. Okay? Now let's come in and let's just turn that LUT off, because we'll just say that we've done all of our work. The colorist is ready to sit down and to start working. Now you'll remember in a previous lesson, I'm just going to head back to the Construct module here for 1 second, that when we got in and applied LUTs, we came over to the media browser, and inside of the grade tab, this is where we got in and added LUTs. So let's just pick a shot here. We'll just pick Epic Adventures 6. We came down here, we said load, we went back to our shortcut to the desktop, to LUTs, to our technical LUT. I said open. That LUT is now applied as a source LUT. Okay, so if I now come, we say okay, we come back to the edit module, you'll now see that that LUT is applied right there. Okay. Now let's talk about how we can apply LUTs in different locations inside of Scratch, and I'm not going to say the consequences, but basically the consequences of doing that. Now you'll notice that with this LUT applied, we are now seeing everything on the waveform and vector scope looking more reflective of how it should. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to head back here and we're just going to remove that LUT. Let's just reset it. Perfect. And let's come now to the color effects module, and we're going to apply a LUT from inside the color effects module. Now you might be thinking right off the bat, well, take a look at that. There's already something called LUT. This is perfect. I'm just going to apply it here. So let's do it. You'll see again, lots of navigating to this folder here. I should probably just set this folder as the shortcut. I'm just going to say open. Perfect. Awesome. We're all set to go. However, if you come back to the media browser and you take a look at what's happened, we don't have that LUT applied as a source LUT. It's actually being applied as a grading LUT. Okay? So something's going on here. Something has changed from the way that we were applying LUTs before to how we're applying them now. Let me show you what's going on here. I'm going to come back to the color effects module, and there's actually two ways in here that we can apply a LUT. I'm just going to reset it from here. The two places that we can apply the LUTs are in the media parameters. You'll see that we have the ability to come in right here. I'm going to come back to our LUT folder. There it is. Apply it right there. Or we can come down and apply it here. Now you don't want to apply it in both places because you'll be double applying the LUT. Okay? But let's take a look at what's happening in the media browser. You'll see that by applying the LUT the way that we applied it now, it's putting the LUT in the correct space inside of our source LUT, which is where we want our technical LUT to go. Once we want to get in and add our stylizing LUT, that's when we'll add it into the grading LUT column, or inside the color effects module, we'll apply it within the LUT parameter. Now we'll just come back here. I'll come to my cool LUT. I'll say open, and you'll now see that this LUT has been applied, and we can bypass it just like such to get a good look and what this LUT is actually doing to our footage. Now, I just want to draw your attention back to the menu in the lower left-hand corner of the color effects page. What I normally like to tell people when they're starting out is to imagine a line being drawn right through the primaries. Now, if the LUT is being applied as a source, meaning it's being applied before the primaries, if the LUT clips anything, this could be any of the whites, any of the blacks, if anything's clipped, it's gone. It's not coming back. Now, if you add a grading LUT, which is being applied after the primaries, if the LUT clips anything, you can go back into the primaries, dial things back to get that information back, and get your image looking exactly the way that you need it to look. Now, I'll be honest, with this LUT here, I'm not a big fan of it, so all I'm going to do is simply reset it. And now what I'm going to do is come back to the construct module into the media browser, and we're going to apply our technical LUT to all of our grades inside of the grade tab. I'm just going to come down to load. Again, exactly the same before. You probably know it. Here we go. I'm going to say open. Perfect. All set to go there. I'm now going to say OK. If we come back to the edit module, we're looking good. Now keep in mind, I'm just going to close the waveform and vector scope here, that some of these shots do actually have grades applied to them. I just haven't been showing them to you because I don't want to give that away until we actually do the compare part of our lesson, which we're going to discuss right now. So let's head to the color effects module here, and I'm going to be honest, it's a little bit difficult constantly scrolling through the shots like this. I'd really rather, have a visual way of looking at the shots that are in my timeline. Well, I actually have it. It's just tucked away a little bit and I can't see it. Right over here, you'll notice that I do have access to the film strip navigator. Alt and F10 on the keyboard, Option and F10 for all my Mac friends out there. And now you'll see that we have the old film strip look that we can now click through to make our lives a lot easier, as well as being able to scroll through the timeline if necessary. Now, one thing that I always recommend to people, I'm just going to come back and we'll look at this on the first shot. I'm just going to come back to the edit module here for just 1 second. Is in our first shot, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to hit the range button so that I can mark an in and out point of the range of this clip. And we're going to make sure that we are set to loop mode. Now you'll see the shortcut is shift and enter. Now you'll notice that as I shift and enter, we've now changed to ping pong and back to just continuous play. So obviously loop, get to the end, go back to the beginning and play again. Ping pong, get to the end and play in reverse. Okay, so we want to keep this as a loop so that when we jump down here, we'll be able to jump back to the beginning so that we can, of course, come to our grades and we can switch through them. I'm using the up and down buttons on the keyboard, page up, page down. Okay, and let's now get in and compare these grades. So to do this, what we're going to do is we're just going to, I'll just leave playback going, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to head over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to toggle the wipe option on the screen. Now with the wipe option on the screen, what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these grades, and in most cases I like to take this and compare it with the original grade, and we're going to stick that on the right hand side of the screen. Now with it on the right hand side of the screen, of course we can drag through, we can of course rotate like such. Okay. And what I'm now going to do is just get in, and much like I had done before, I'm going to use the up and down, page up and page down buttons, pardon me, on the keyboard to view the different grades of my shots very quickly and very easily. So this is a great way to be able to get in and to look at this side by side. Now let's talk about another way that we can do the similar technique. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop playback for a second here, and I'm going to turn off the wipe mode, and beside wipe mode on the viewer right here, we have a dual mode. Now what is dual mode? Well, check this out. I'm going to turn dual mode on, and you'll now see that what has happened is that we now have similar to what we had before, except the difference now is that both shots are full screen. Now you'll notice that if I hold Option or Alt on the keyboard and I use the mouse wheel, I can zoom in on the shots, or I can hold the space bar and I can reposition things, and things can get out of whack real quick. If you're scrolling around and things get out of whack very quickly, all you need to do is to simply come back and make sure that the image is fit to the display like such. You'll see that we can do this on both screens here. Very nice. Okay. And we're now all set to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring that out of the way, because I can now bring that up to be full screen. Remember, Scratch does like to come in, and if you have either the layers window or our versions window open and you come in and you tell it to fit to the display, it's going to fit it to the edge of those windows that have been pulled out from the side of the screen. Now, one thing I want to just draw your attention to briefly is the little highlighted button called Link. Right now you'll see our two screens were working, I say almost working together as one, because they are linked together. If we were to come down and deactivate Link, we could then get in, we could scale and position the windows however we want, and then conceivably relink them back together to then get in and adjust them together once again. Okay. Now, more so important, I think, on the left to keep it full frame. So let's just do that. We'll get it full to the viewer. And on the right-hand side here, we're just going to make sure that it fits perfectly like such, because I want to see the grades as we go through them. Again, I'm just going to hit the space bar down here with the timeline active. And of course, all we're going to do now is simply either click on the grade that we want to see side by side, or use page up and page down on the keyboard. Now, that's great and everything, but what I'd really like to do is, instead of looking at a custom view, what I want to do is actually look at all of the versions that I have at the same time. So what I can then do is compare the original to the different grades. So at any time I can say, oh, you know what? I think maybe this sort of bluish one here is the one that we're going to go with. So now I can simply come up and say, yep, that's it. We're all good to go. What we're going to do is we're just going to switch that mode off, and we're now back and all set to go to continue grading other shots in our timeline. Now, one other thing that I want to point out that's also very cool, and I just want to just double check this against some of our other shots. Let me come back to the color effects module. I'm going to come in here, we're going to pick that grade right there, and I'm going to come here and we're going to choose that grade right there. Very nice. And let's just pick something that's a little bit stand outish here. We'll just go with our orangey red grade, and I'm going to park myself right on this middle shot in between the shots on either side of it. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to toggle on the previous next in the timeline. Okay, so let's toggle that on, and I'm just going to get rid of my versions for 1 second here. And let's just get rid of our film strip just to give us a little bit more screen real estate, because now what I'm looking at is the previous shot and the current grade on it, and the next shot and its current grade. So now I can easily go through and compare what's going on the shots before and after the shots that I'm currently working on at any time. And you'll notice that as I drag through, it's going to constantly update, so I can always see exactly what's going on around the current grade that I'm working on. Alright, so I think that's a good place to leave off for this lesson. In our next lesson, what I want to do is I want to get in and I want to talk about working with effects and mats. Now we're going to talk about working with actual effects, applying them to layers inside of our project. I want to talk about transfer modes and how we're going to apply visual effect shots with transfer modes. And then we're going to wrap things up by talking about how to apply mat keys to clips in our timelines. All right, now as always, if you have any questions, you have any comments, or ideas for upcoming lessons or courses, I want you to head on over and post them in our forums at lowpost.com/forums. And if you have any questions for me, you can always send them to kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com.